Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a big upcoming snowstorm for portions of the Midwestern United States as well as portions of the Great Lakes and the interior Northeast. We're going to be going over how much snow you could be seeing with that. We're also going to be going over in the beginning part of the video that cold air mass that might dip down into the eastern United States as we get into the month of December. We're going to be going over some of your teleconnections that are going to be influencing your pattern, and we're also going to be talking about something that I've been talking about for the past couple of videos, that 10 millibar height anomaly map that's showing you that big polar vortex kind of dipping down into the eastern and central United States over time. Now, before we do get into it, I do want to thank you guys for getting me to the magic 2,000 subscriber mark. It has been a very long journey to get there. I've been doing YouTube for over a year and a half now by this point, so I really do want to thank you guys for getting me to 2,000 subscribers. It was just about 2 months ago that I was celebrating 1,000 subscribers, so it is really crazy that you guys have supported my channel so much that we've already gotten to 2,000 subscribers. So I just want to do a little thank you in the beginning of this video. And now let's start getting into your current National Weather Service page, and then let's move on to the rest of the video. We have red flag warnings, believe it or not, for portions of the South Central and portions of the Tennessee Valley and Ohio valleys there, where you are dealing with some red flag conditions, some fire danger conditions for that region. We also have some wind advisories, so those gusty winds coming out of the south could lead to some hazardous conditions for fire. And then we also have some winter weather advisories for northern Minnesota, North Dakota, and northeastern Montana, as well as some winter weather advisories for portions of Washington and Oregon there, especially in those higher elevations. Now, let's start talking about that big polar vortex and what I've been talking about over the past couple of videos. Now, this is what the polar vortex looks like right now. In those blues, that's where you're dealing with that polar vortex, and that's actually where the polar vortex is located at. And those orange shades, that's where that bridging is. That's where that warmer air is. So usually, actually last winter, that polar vortex was very, very strong. It was kind of just being wrapped up over portions of the Arctic Circle. So they actually had a record cold winter, but of course then for the lower 48 you guys were in a very, very warm pattern because all that cold air was stuck up in the Arctic Circle. It couldn't get down to the lower 48, and it couldn't get down to the US, so you ended up having a very warm year in terms of your snowfall and your temperatures. Now let's go forward a little bit, and just so I mentioned, this is about 90 to 105,000 feet up in the atmosphere. So because it's so high up in the atmosphere, and because this is mainly a good way to look at longer range indications, because it's so high up in the atmosphere, this is going to mean it's going to take about a week to 2 weeks to translate to the surface. So for example, this is November 27th on the GFS model, so this would be probably when you would see something that looks similar to this on the surface patterns, where you would see a trough in the west and also in western Canada, that colder air centered over the west. That would probably be right around December 10th or so. So December 5th to 10th, that's when it would occur on the surface. So it's going to slowly translate to our surface pattern. In this frame, this is where we're looking at some colder air dipping into the western United States, but that's going to be temporary, because if I go to the next frame, this is going through December 5th on the upper air map, so that would translate in the longer term. Once it translates down to the surface, that would be right around most likely right around December 12th to about 19th. So this would be right around Christmas week when this cold air mass would start to really play a role in our pattern. And you can see we would have some sort of prolonged trough over the eastern United States, and this is usually a good way of indicating the overall general pattern. And then just so that you guys know that I'm not just picking this out from one model run, here are the last several model runs, I believe 8 GFS model runs going all the way back to I believe around the 15th, and this is at 300 hours out, and you're looking at most of those models showing fairly the same thing, where you have an elongated polar vortex that's showing some cold air for at least the central and eastern United States in many of those model runs. So that's just something that we have to keep in mind, and that's just something that I keep on looking at periodically throughout the day. So here's something else that we have to look at. These are teleconnections. So this is the NAO, and this is showing you general generally whether you have ridging or troughing over an area. The NAO is to the area east of Greenland. So if you have cold conditions and troughing in areas near Iceland, you could say, or west of the UK, then you're going to have ridging over Greenland, and then you'll have another trough in the eastern United States. That's if you have a negative NAO. If you look out on the European model's forecast, it does go into a negative phase. That's a cold phase for the eastern United States right around the change of the month, going from November to December, so right around November 29th or so. Here would be the European model on the AO. The AO, when it's positive, keeps that cold air locked up in the poles. When it's negative, you have a lot of that cold air just spilling into the United States, into southern Canada, and it's also spilling into parts of Siberia. So it's kind of just spreading all out, and the polar vortex really just comes down into our neck of the woods. And we're looking at that also dipping negative as we get to the same time frame, right around the 29th of November. And this does not go out to the coldest period, when that would be probably way further down if this model went far enough out. Now here's something else how we have to look at the PNA. This creates ridging over the western United States, and if you have ridging over the west, you have troughing over the east. And look at that, that's going to spike positive as we get to the end of the month. And then look at the EPO, that's a similar oscillation to the PNA, and that is going to go fairly close to neutral. So it will definitely, and I believe when the EPO is, negative, it actually is the coldest, and you can see it's starting to dip further negative there. So let's continue on with the forecast. Let's start looking at that storm that I was talking about in the beginning of the video. Now, we're looking at some storminess out over the south central United States. That's the system. That's by Monday, November 23rd. Now, this is going to be a storm that's going to be impacting right around Thanksgiving Eve for many areas. Now, this would be by Monday, right around midnight. And then as we're getting to Monday, right around 6 a.m., here's 12 p.m. And then as we're getting to right around 6 p.m., we're looking at some scattered rain and snow showers through the north central United States. A low is now forming out in parts of Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska there. And then as we continue forward, here would be by midnight on Tuesday, heavy rain and snow moving through portions of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. And if we carry this forward, you start to see that snow intensifies, and you might get a little bit of lake effect enhancement coming off that north wind that's kind of like this. You might get some lake effect enhancement with that storm. So it's already going to be snowing because of the storm, but you might get some lake effect bands that actually increase those snowfall rates even more than they are already at. Now, we're starting to see this low pressure system move a little bit further out to the east. We're dealing with very heavy snow for portions of the northern Great Lakes, according to this model. This would be by Tuesday right around lunchtime. Then as we get to Tuesday right around 6 p.m., we're dealing with some scattered convective activity setting up right around a frontal system. We're dealing with warm air being pushed out of the south, and especially the Gulf of Mexico, that general region. We're also then getting more cold air coming out on the backside of this high pressure system, so you are dealing with some cold air on that northern side of the system. And then if we continue forward, what you start to see is that this low pressure moves up to the north and becomes a trough system that kind of picks up like this. We have another low pressure system start to develop out here, so what you're going to get is this trough pick up this low pressure system and drive it out to the north and to the east. So let's play this out for you guys. It then moves into Indiana and Ohio, really wraps up, I guess you could say, and then it starts to really kind of disengage with that trough. It splits off according to the GFS, and it's a little bit more out there. It's moving out into the northeast, and by this point it's pretty much right over New York City, I guess you could say, and it's starting to move over the northeast coast. And then by this point it's in the Gulf of Maine, and it's a fairly wrapped up low pressure system, almost a nor'easter, you could say. Now, here's what the European model shows for that same exact storm, and you can't pick it up on this model, but on this frame exactly, but you can see some general scattered activity through the south central United States. That's the star of the system, and you start to see that get going as we get to probably, this would be right around Tuesday on around midnight, and then as we're getting to 6 a.m., here's 12 p.m. on Tuesday. We're looking at that rain spreading further north, that snow being suppressed to the northern Great Lakes, maybe a quick set over to snow, and then it switches over to rain for many areas, except that once you get a little bit further north, it might stay all snow for those regions. As we continue forward, here would be by Tuesday right around 6 p.m. Here would be by Wednesday right around midnight. This would be Thanksgiving Day by this point. So Wednesday, actually no, Thanksgiving would be the 26th. So this would be Wednesday the 25th, Thanksgiving Eve, and we're dealing with some snow for portions of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. Some of that convective activity a little bit further to the south in those darker greens. And as we continue playing this forward, the European model doesn't develop this as much as some of the other models. And as we continue forward, you start to see some of that snow set up for the interior northeast, and it's pretty much all said and done with as we get to Thursday evening. Now, here's what those snowfall totals look like from the European model. It does show a good 2 to 6 inch accumulation for much of the Great Lakes states. We're also dealing with some snow for the interior northeast. Here's what the GFS snowfall shows, and we're dealing with a fairly similar situation with that. And I might have a snowfall forecast out maybe in another 2 days, depending on how good the models keep this within their vision. So like whether the models keep this in their vision is really gonna depend on whether or not I make a forecast. If they really keep on with the same trend, I'll most likely have a forecast out by Saturday or so. Now here to be what the Canadian model shows, and the Canadian is a little bit more of a peculiar situation. A lot of snow for the interior northeast, the lower Great Lakes, but then it really doesn't show too much for the upper Great Lakes, which is kind of the reverse of what you would expect with this type of storm. So definitely it's a bit of a different situation, something that we have to keep in mind. Maybe this is a solution, and this is just one of the reasons why I'm not making a forecast, an official snowfall forecast just yet, just because there is something like this that could happen, and maybe just the Canadian model is picking up on it right now, and maybe the models shift with the Canadian model, or maybe the Canadian model shifts to the GFS and the European model. There's a lot of different solutions with this. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you never miss a video when I do upload. Again, thank you for 2,000 subscribers, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.